Eating one meal a day is a very popular form of intermittent fasting, but does it work well for people living with diabetes? In this video, we're gonna break down the Omad diet. We're gonna help you determine whether or not Omad is right for you, and we're gonna show you the best way to eat an Omad diet, including some fun recipes with a link in the description.
The Omad diet is a dietary strategy in which, as the name implies, you eat only one meal a day within a single window that lasts approximately 1 hour. The rest of the time, you're drinking water and zero-calorie beverages. As one of the many forms of intermittent fasting, Omad takes advantage of several of your body's natural adaptations by creating a clearly defined eating window and an extended fasting window lasting the rest of the day, which in most cases is about 23 hours. If you want to learn more about intermittent fasting in general, you can explore our other video on the topic right here.
The difference between one meal a day and several other forms of intermittent fasting is in the balance of the fasting and the eating window. Where other strategies like the 16-8 method or the 24-hour method change your meal frequency and emphasize long periods without eating, Omad condenses all of your eating into one meal per day, as the name implies. Now, this can be a great idea for some people, and we are very big fans here of intermittent fasting at Mastering Diabetes. But when it comes to implementing a smart, effective Omad diet, the most important consideration is doing so in a sustainable way that works for you not only today, but also into the long term. Eating only once per day requires, number one, large meals. Number two, long periods where you are not consuming food, and this may be psychologically and physically challenging, and this can also create some obstacles, so it's definitely worth experimenting. Now, let's answer a big question first. The question is, why would you eat one meal a day?
Well, when you do the Omad diet correctly, there are a wide variety of health benefits drawing from three major factors. First, it's easier to maintain a calorie deficit when eating only once per day, which in turn will help you lose weight and move towards your ideal body weight in a sustainable manner. Secondly, when eating only once per day, it's often less tempting to eat fried and packaged foods and instead eat foods that are known to promote optimal metabolic health. Third, there is a biological process called autophagy that your body enters during a fasted state that's beneficial to all tissues.
So here's a super quick explanation of fasting and autophagy because it can be a little bit complicated. Once your body has digested, absorbed, and transported the nutrients present in a single meal, cells and tissues all throughout your body are forced to oxidize or burn the fuels that they have stored over the course of time, including glucose and fatty acids. Now, during an extended fasting window, there's a deficit of fuel in your blood, which forces cells in many tissues to utilize stored glucose and stored fatty acids for ATP, which is the cellular form of energy. As the fasting duration increases, the amount of remaining glycogen, which is the stored form of glucose, and the amount of remaining triglyceride, which is a stored form of fatty acids, both decrease, which is actually a good thing for you. As the duration of fasting increases beyond approximately 16 hours, amino acids from protein can also be degraded and converted into glucose via a process known as the Cori cycle. Proteins are broken down into their constituent amino acids, and those amino acids are recycled. Some are converted into glucose. Some branched-chain amino acids like isoleucine, leucine, and valine are directly oxidized for energy, and others are recycled into new proteins that have a wide variety of functions, including cell receptors, intracellular proteins, circulating peptide hormones, and many others. Now, you can think of this recycling process as a way to clean up the cellular environment, to recycle dysfunctional and damaged protein, and that in turn reduces the biological burden that's caused by oxidative stress. So now that you understand a little bit more about autophagy and how Omad works, let's break down the many ways that an Omad diet can actually help you.
The Omad diet can be a very effective technique at helping you lose weight because, as the name describes, you only eat to satiation once per day. By doing this, you're likely to find that it's very challenging to overeat your daily caloric requirements in a single meal. Well, unless you are really trying. But in general, Omad makes it easy to hit a daily calorie deficit. And those fewer calories then translate into weight loss and fat loss, which is definitely a good thing if you're currently carrying a few extra pounds.
Now, the Omad diet can be a hugely beneficial technique for people living with diabetes to reduce their blood glucose, their body weight, and their insulin concentrations, especially when paired with a plant-rich diet. Now, the reason is simple. Fasting is excellent for diabetes. Remember our friend autophagy that we just talked about? Well, that process helps burn excess lipids stored in lipid droplets that can set the stage for insulin resistance, as we've talked about many times before. In addition to its weight loss and fat loss benefits, both of which improve insulin resistance, OMAD also makes diabetes management a simpler process. Just think about it. In the absence of food, it's easier to control your blood glucose profile, which in turn reduces your fasting glucose and your fasting insulin concentrations. And guess what? Both of those are likely to reduce your A1C value and dramatically improve your diabetes health. After all, insulin is secreted in response to energy availability. So when you fast, the metabolic signals to secrete insulin are eliminated completely.
And honestly, we're barely even scratching the surface here on how intermittent fasting can help you with diabetes. That's why we've got several great resources in the description of this video that'll help you. Let's talk about the Omad diet for blood pressure and cholesterol. So this is not just for people living with diabetes. There has been some promising research that OMAD and other forms of intermittent fasting also have a beneficial effect on your blood pressure and cardiovascular health. It's important to note, however, that OMAD by itself does not necessarily increase your health. You could eat unhealthy ingredients at your one meal, or you could theoretically stuff yourself and not go into a caloric deficit. Below, we'll explore some of the ways that the Omad diet could be done incorrectly, and then we'll talk about how you can implement the Omad diet into your life in a safe, effective, and properly planned manner.
Now, the human body is capable of fasting for many days at a time. Depending on your fat mass, you could likely fast for between 14 days at the minimum and upwards of 60 days at a time. So from that perspective, performing OMAD is actually quite safe. However, despite that, there are three major things to be aware of if you're planning on trying an OMAD diet. Number one, it's important to watch what you eat. Number two, it's important to think about whether you're trying to get pregnant or whether you actually are pregnant right now. And number three, it's also important to be aware of potential physical and psychological challenges that could arise from only eating one meal per day.
First, let's talk about watching what you're eating. People who engage in OMAD eat a single meal containing all of their daily calories. But in the search for enough calories, other people gravitate towards eating packaged and refined foods like donuts, crackers, chips, sodas, and pastries, and argue that, quote, it doesn't matter what I eat because I'm only eating once per day.
So in effect, the one meal a day strategy can sometimes lead people to sacrifice food quality for food quantity. So let's be real. The science is clear. A high intake of animal foods, high-fat foods, and/or refined foods can all independently contribute to an increased risk for many chronic diseases, including, but not limited to, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, chronic kidney disease, fatty liver disease, and more. So the goal is to avoid overeating or eating junk food, which can result in fatigue, weight gain, and increasing the risk for chronic diseases, despite the fact that you're fasting for the majority of the day.
Another thing to be aware of is that women and men respond differently to intermittent fasting. Most research shows that OMAD can be therapeutic and benefit women's health, weight, and cardiovascular factors and has limited or negligible side effects. However, changing your diet can impact many aspects of your body, including your hormone balance. These usually come back to normal as your body adjusts. But if you're pregnant or trying to get pregnant, then please consult with your doctor before trying OMAD.
The last hurdle is that physically and psychologically, it can be challenging to prepare for 23 hours of fasting per day. Without knowing it, many people binge eat during their single daily meal, which creates a daily habit that can lead to disordered eating or other nasty side effects. For people with eating disorders, or simply people who do lots of physical activity throughout the day, they also might find it difficult or impossible to eat an OMAD diet. For these people, it's better to try a different plan, like a 16-8 fasting plan, or no fasting at all. If you start to notice excessive stress, excessive weight loss, or physical strain, which can dramatically reduce your quality of life in the long term, talk to your nutritionist or your coach before deciding that OMAD is the right strategy for you. And as we mentioned above, for some people, the 1 meal a day diet may not be the right thing. And there's no shame in that at all. It's a great tool and can have many powerful results, but it's always worth making sure it's the right plan for you because you are an individual and you are different than everyone else.
With that said, if you're ready to give it a try, you may be asking yourself a question: where do I start? As we mentioned above, OMAD by itself doesn't necessarily maximize your health benefits. After all, OMAD just means 1 meal a day, which could feasibly include everything from a plant-based diet, it could be a carnivore diet, and you could have meals composed of entirely just Spam and soda. However, certain diets will emphasize the health benefits of OMAD far more than others.
And yeah, you guessed it. The best diet for OMAD, at least if you're looking for the health benefits that we recommend, is our absolute favorite, which is the low-fat, plant-based whole food diet. Surprise, surprise. Are we sounding like a broken record yet? Probably we are, right? Because this is important. We sing it from the mountaintops because we see its effects in people living with diabetes over and over and over again. Combined with 1 meal a day or other forms of intermittent fasting, as well as daily exercise, a low-fat plant-based whole food diet can dramatically improve your health, promote weight loss that's permanent and sustainable in the long term, help reverse insulin resistance quickly and have prolonged benefits. It can also improve your fitness level, and it can also dramatically reduce your risk for many chronic diseases, as we've described in the Mastering Diabetes book, backed up by more than 800 scientific citations.
Well, there you have it. A brief explanation of eating 1 meal a day if you're living with diabetes. We broke down the awesome benefits of the OMAD diet, how to make sure that the OMAD diet is right for you, and the best way to eat OMAD. And don't forget to check out the fun recipes linked below this video. And as always, if you're still a little confused, we're here to help. Here at Mastering Diabetes, we've got a pretty good sense for intermittent fasting because it's one of the core ways we recommend reversing insulin resistance and working to improve your life if you're living with any form of diabetes. And while 1 meal a day isn't always the easiest form of intermittent fasting for some, it has some powerful results.
Navigating your way through the complicated world of living with diabetes can be extremely stressful. We know that. That's why we want you to know that you're not alone. We understand that the world of nutrition itself is also extremely confusing. And there's conflicting advice everywhere you turn, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or the blogosphere. So if you're still confused about the exact intermittent fasting strategy that's best for you, or whether you should even eat 1 meal a day in the first place, or whether there's periods of time where you might want to skip intermittent fasting in order to achieve your specific health goals, then we can help. Our expert coaches have been trained extensively in how to help you with your specific goals and challenges. They will help you reverse insulin resistance and master diabetes in the same way that Robbie and I have mastered diabetes many years ago. They can help provide you with dietary advice, exercise advice, and nutritional guidance that is custom tailored to you and your unique biology. If you've got a question, or if you're looking for a little guidance either way, reach out to us and book a discovery call now. Visit masteringdiabetes.org/start, and we will see you in the next video.